Afternoon. This is Bill Gross, the LAProbateExpert.com, and this is our Thursday afternoon, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Probate Weekly, probateweekly.com, where we get together and talk about all things probate real estate. It's a place for investors, wholesalers, agents, families, attorneys, vendors to get together to learn more, share information, share leads, help each other build our businesses. And we do this every Thursday, 4 o'clock. You can register and participate on the live Zoom at probateweekly.com. You just register there if you want to, or if you're watching on the live stream on either YouTube or Facebook, you can go there. And if you ask questions there and post them, they'll show up on my screen here. I'll be able to respond as well. So I'd love to have you participate. We do this every week. We're going to do it every week through the rest of the year. We have since COVID started. And really excited. Sometimes I do some content myself. Sometimes we bring in a vendor. I'm really excited today to bring in somebody who was referred to me by really one of my, I won't say mentors, but a guy that I've watched and learned from quite a bit. John Kasman recommended this person, Sharon, as somebody who was an expert in probate from an investor's point of view and could teach us a little bit about how to be more effective and more successful in our investments. So please welcome Sharon Vornholt from Louisville, Kentucky. Sharon, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Bill.
My pleasure. I love having you on because you just sound so classy. You know, I'm in Los Angeles. Anybody with that?
People usually say you sound really Southern.
Well, I know, but in California, it sounds classy to us. So we're easily impressed. So tell us a little bit about a little background, where you grew up and how you got into real estate.
Well, I was born here in Louisville, and I've always lived here. So I've always invested right in this area. My dad was a contractor when I was growing up. I would tell people I was the oldest of 4 children. So by default, I got to tag along with him. I was the most well-behaved. And so that's really where my love of property started. But fast forward to 1991, I had a business, and it was a real estate related business. And an agent walked in and said, "Do you want to go to a RIA meeting, agent investor?" And I said, "What's a RIA meeting?" And so I ended up going that week to the real estate investors meeting. And that was the first time I knew that you could be involved in real estate without being a realtor, which I wasn't interested in doing. So I invested part-time from 1998 until 2008, in which time I closed the other business. So we all know what happened around 2007, 2008, the market crashed. So it was the best of times and the worst of times. The whole world was on sale at that time, but it was a terrible time to be a rehabber, which was what my main strategy that I was doing at that time. So I pivoted, and overnight I just became a wholesaler. And about that same time was when I discovered probates, and I found that it was the perfect spot for me to work in. I always loved off-market deals. That was my strengths were in marketing. So it was a perfect fit for me I just continued to source deals, and finding probates, which are a never-ending stream of leads. It was something that I just grew to love. I love helping those people. So I set about to learn the process, because there was really no one doing it, certainly not in my area, and not really across the country at that time, because that was in 2008. Since that time, I created a course to help other people not go through what I went through, but it's my absolute most profitable niche to work in, probates hands down.
Nice. So now you primarily, or I should say, you're not an agent, so you're an investor exclusively, as well as an entrepreneur with some other business, and you also do some coaching in the probate space for investors. So talk a little bit about coaching. How'd you get into that, and what's that look like?
Well, it was really kind of an organic process. Most people that are investors have started with some of the online sites like Bigger Pockets and those sites where you just get asked a lot of questions, probably like you do from agents. So along the way, I found there weren't enough hours in the day to invest. I have a blog, I have a podcast. So it was a matter of figuring out a way to help more people, like you're doing here with this call. It's a one-to-many model. Sometimes it's a one-to-one model. But I found that I really loved the teaching aspect of it, which was odd because I had never ever considered being a teacher or a coach, or you certainly had been a mentor, but in a formal coaching program, it was not something I'd ever really considered, but something that I really love doing, which is the whole teaching, training, coaching aspect of it.
So let's back up a little bit just to cover what you did. You talked about your podcast. Tell us a little bit about that. I'm going to share the screen where people can find it on Apple and other podcast places.
It's Bill, I like to say I'm kind of the person that jumps out of the plane and builds the parachute on the way down. And so I did that with the blog in 2010. And then in 2013, I thought, well, it sounds kind of cool to have a podcast. I really had no idea what I was doing, though, as far as how to do a podcast. And I was really before people even had courses on how to launch a podcast. So I just did what I was doing. And that is I started just teaching some of the things I learned. And then I started having people on my show like you doing interviews, which I found to be hugely important to my business growth because things I don't know. John Kasman knows things that I don't know. Maybe you don't know. We all learn from each other. And that was the magic of the podcast. I would say from a business perspective, if that is something that is of any interest to you, you will grow your network across the country and in some cases internationally with a podcast. If you like talking, for some people, it's a safer venue than video. Okay. Because, women, you're like, okay, my hair looks bad today, whatever it is, but you can hide behind the mic and still do your thing, so to speak.
Well, I have a face for radio. I should be in radio instead of video, but just like doing video too much. So really, you're just talking about sharing your vision, sharing your principles, your systems, and reaching out. And I'll tell you, I'm building a national real estate team underneath my business, and I'm really pushing all my agents to extend themselves, going from email to now adding video to it, and then trying to add a weekly program. And one of my team members has had great results with multifamily and found a really great investment the other day as a result. So the more you put yourself out there, the more likely you are to find something that works for you. So let's talk about real estate investors. I know that your program, and we'll get to it in a little more detail, is more for established, people who are making some money and committed to it. But let's talk about people get started. I'm sure, like me, you see people who want to start, think about starting, talk about starting, getting ready to start, making lists to start, and don't quite. What do you see as the key that gets somebody from, say, 0 to step 1 in their real estate investing career?
I think you have to decide. I think it was Wayne Dyer said to decide is to push away all the objections and just go all in on it. And I think you have to commit. You have to have a certain amount of learning. I think that's very valuable. But at some point, you have to just pull the plug and do your first deal. I think that's the secret. Once you've done a deal or two, and you have maybe negotiated the deal, you've written a contract, and you know the basics of how the deal works. You know what to do when you go to closing. Then you can think about probates. But probates work for agents and for investors. Now, of all the probates that come out, here in Louisville, I'm in a smaller metropolitan area, like million-ish population. We would get 80 to 120 a month. If you're in Chicago, probably LA too. I know for certain in Chicago, there are 800 probates a month, literally every single month. So if someone wants to transition to that, they need a little bit of knowledge. It's not for the brand new beginner, I think, that has never done a deal. That's my opinion, because it is a little bit hard. There's a little bit more to it. Don't you agree, Bill? I think there's a little bit more to it.
I agree with you. I don't think that a newer investor should target probate as a lead gen source. I do think that a newer investor should learn enough about probate to find a trusted partner to bring those deals to monetize them and maybe close a deal that's involved with probate, so you don't give up on it just because it's involved with probate.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I think in my area, we've always partnered with somebody more experienced, or in some cases, you are the more experienced and you partner with someone with less experience. But that's a great way to think about it. Probably at least 80% of all the probates will be listed on the MLS, and certainly in this type of a market. That leaves a nice chunk for investors, 20, 25%. But for agents, gosh, it is an absolute gold mine. I mean, to be an agent that specializes in probates like you do is a rare thing, really rare.
Well, it's not that rare. I wish it was more.
Well, in my area, it's really rare. So if you take all the agents though in the area that you work in, probably the percentage is small if you take the total population of agents.
Yeah, we have a lot of agents, so a small amount of anything is a lot.
It's still a lot of people.
It's a lot, way too many people.
That's where branding comes in. So it doesn't matter if you're an agent or you are an investor. I say this a lot. Marketing is how you get deals, but branding is why they choose you. So you know about branding. You're doing the show. You've got these folks that follow you. I know about branding, and I have to tell you, it's the absolute secret sauce to any business. It doesn't matter whether you're an investor or you could be a doctor. Getting people to choose you over all the other people out there is not that hard once you know the basic branding, basic branding, because your so-called competitors in most cases are doing absolutely nothing to get branded. They're going out there doing a deal or two. They're not doing this show like this. They're not doing a podcast. I always tell people, you don't have to have a podcast. You don't have to have a blog. Everybody can create video and put it up on YouTube. Then take that video and share it on Facebook, share it on LinkedIn. Video is definitely the fastest way to build your brand and to get known on the planet. And everybody can do that today with their cell phone. You can get a good quality video. You can do a property walkthrough. There are just a million things you can do to educate other people on how to be better at what they do, how to be a better business person, how to showing tips. Gosh, there's just a million ideas for video.
One of the best videos I ever did was I had a moving company moving my client's junk out. It was really junk more than moving. But I just shot the video of the team working on it and me there. And people were interested in all kinds of activity and action. And I said to myself, this video thing is real. Like
it's real.
And I'm just me. Imagine if I was some young, good-looking guy back when I was young, maybe. But it doesn't matter. People, if they're interested in real estate or they're interested in moving houses or junk out services or probate or investment, they're interested in that content, they're going to seek you out and try to find a way to interact with it, it seems like.
People love day in the life type of videos. You have to be careful about showing addresses and personal things, but they love, in the case of an investor that pulls up in front of a house, whips out his camera and says, look at this beauty. It's a big hot mess. It's distressed. The grass is 2 feet tall. And then they do this they drive for dollars or whatever, and they post 5 or 10 of these over time. Guess what? Before long, you are known as the hottest real estate investor in your area. Same thing is true for agents. Just post something that a day in the life of what you do. And it's pure gold.
Well, and I like the opposite. There's so many realtors who do videos of really pretty houses. That's just not my world. I don't put cookies in the oven, and I don't put out potpourri. I carry a weapon. I make sure I'm safe. I go at daytime only. And, we shoot video of that. People go, wow, I have a problem like that. Maybe he can help me, or who can I use to?
Exactly. They want to know that they're just like you, or that you're just like them. So if it's an ugly house, if you do something a special way, one of my most popular blog posts that I did was safety tips for women, really safety tips for anyone when looking at property. And when I did that 10 years ago, it wasn't nearly as dangerous, I don't think, as it is today. But there are certain things that anyone can do, but especially women who tend to have handbags and things, to never have your hands holding anything. Always put your car keys in your pocket or your jacket. Don't keep them in your purse in case you have to make a fast escape. But it came down to even wearing women. I know an agent sometimes get really dressed up and have on heels and things. For me, I always think danger, danger. You need to be able to get away if you need to get away. So practical tips. Something that someone else is interested in knowing.
Right. Well, that's good tips. So talk a bit about, investors who are professional. I really don't know a lot about the business. I have a lot of investors who are clients and they buy properties. Um, I mean, I guess I do know a little bit about it, but I don't know how they got to where they are. So how does somebody get from I'm buying a house from here and there and I'm flipping, making some money? How do they move from that to becoming a business?
Well, you have to have help. Now that might look like a VA or two. It certainly looks like systems. You have to have systems for doing things. Now, at the very basic, I would say you have a marketing plan and then you figure out how you're going to implement that. I'm a big calendar person. So, for instance, you would systematize your direct mail. If you don't like talking to sellers, you might have a partner or someone that talks to sellers. But each thing that is a repeatable task, you make a system or have a process for doing it, and then you have to have help to scale. Now, there is an investor in Nashville who does 185 to 200, somewhat 200 wholesale deals a year. This guy has $1 million payroll. That's not my dream. My dream was a lifestyle business with less but more profitable deals. So everybody's dream is different. And I would say, first of all, figure out what you want your business to look like. Do you want to do 50 transactions a year? You want to do 20 or you want to do 100? Well, if you're the guy like Bill wants to do 200-300, it's unlikely that Bill by himself is going to be able to do 200 or 300 transactions. He's got a team. He spoke to that. Your team could be as simple as a part-time person. It could be a couple of VAs, but look at everything that you do. And this exercise is really valuable for everyone. Make a list of everything that you do, and then start to separate those things out into things you're good at, things you really should be doing that are skills for you. What are the things you hate doing? For me, it's like bookkeeping. So I hired my daughter. I can do it. I'm good at it, but I absolutely hate that part of the business. But figure out, some people don't like marketing. There's an answer for that. You have to generate leads, but figure out first what you want your business to look like. Then, if you want to do 100 deals a year, how am I going to get there? That's going to be marketing. Then you would say, okay, who's going to answer the phone? Who's going to look at all these properties? So it might be a partner deal. It might be an employee type of situation, but I think you have to figure out what you want before you figure out how to get it.
Yeah, I agree.
If that makes sense.
No, I agree 100%. I think I sat out 3 years ago and I wrote out a 5-year plan. If finishing the third year this month, I have a very clear picture of what it looks like at the end of that year 5. And I know what I need to do next year and the year after those goals. And I break it down to a quarter. You're 100% right. And I don't think I could do 185 deals or would want to have the staff and all the overhead. I did 42 transactions last year. And I didn't really feel like I was working that hard, to be honest. It was kind of fun because I do delegate quite a bit. I think you're right. The delegation, we have more. And I know you've been doing teaching and coaching entrepreneurship for a while. It just seems like because of COVID and with technology, there's more tools for delegation than ever in my career in real estate. I don't go to any properties. I don't really see too many clients. I'm selling a bunch of houses. Is that what you see with the clients that you coach? Is that what you see in your business?
Well, I think, yes, I'm always trying to get them to take themselves out of the business. So I have a friend who's an investor, and he told me probably 10 years ago, it's something I've never forgotten. He said, your goal should be to take yourself out of your business, the day-to-day of your business, of you being the doer, except for the things that make you that where you are the face of the business, like this meeting where Bill has this meeting, or when I do a podcast, something like that, or you, like Carol, makes a video. Those things you have to do yourself. But there are some tools, and I think that when you look at everything that has to get done and you start to set about goals and what you want your business to look like, one of the most valuable tools that I ever found was the book called The 12-Week Year.
Yeah.
That's where you take all your goals and you break them down into quarters, then you break them down into weeks, because let's face it, those goals that you've got in January, you should have no more than 3 or 4 big goals to begin with. But those goals will not get done unless you say, I'm going to do this one in this period and this one, and then break it down and figure out how to do it. The other book, that's the book by Brian Moran. The other book that has really changed the way I think about things and is going to kind of be my Bible for next year as I continue to get rid of things myself is a book called Who Not How.
Yep.
So I would challenge everybody. We all do things in our business that we shouldn't be doing. We all do it. And the next time you need or tempted to try to figure out how to do something, go on to Upwork or one of the outsourcing sites and find a how or find a who. I mean, it will change your life. So, and I'm guilty of that, but probably the first book that I read that changed my thinking about all of that was, you're probably familiar with a guy named Mike Michalowicz. He wrote Profit First.
Yep.
He also wrote a great book called Clockwork. Clockwork is kind of the same principle in that one. He talks about finding out what your zone of genius is and do that, and then let somebody else do all of the other things. And he talks about how much easier your life is and how much happier you'll be when you're not stuck in the weeds doing things that you're not good at, you don't like doing, and you're not the best choice for.
Wow, some great insight. I think, I've tried to get my business to where I do content work, talking to leverage, talking to people. I get people call me by appointment who want to talk to me. And pretty much everything else I try to get somebody else to do. And I have to be careful because you can't do that in your life, right? You can't do that with your wife or your spouse or your child.
No.
Because the goal there is to interact with them. It's not really about the work. It's about the interaction. And even with clients, sometimes we have to be careful that we don't want to delegate out so we don't interact with clients, because our goal with the certain clients is to build a relationship with them. So you have to be a little careful about that. I would say for years I overdid it. I learned how to do contracts without ever meeting clients. And I wondered why I didn't get the repeat business and referrals I wanted. Well, if you never meet me, you're not going to love me. And you're not
I think in Clockwork, they talk about it's like the QB function. I always think of the acronym Queen Bee. So you figured out what are the activities that you and you alone should do. And I know what they are for me, and I'm still pulling myself out of the weeds sometimes. I'll think, well, that would be fun to do that. And I'm going, wait a minute, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop. But it's really not, who knew it was so hard to give away work, right, Bill?
Right. It can be sometimes, and sometimes I can spend more time giving away work than just doing it. I caught myself, I changed accountants and bookkeepers a few months ago. And so now we're getting ready for the end of the year, and new bookkeepers that have assigned certain things to do. And some of those things I don't have delegated because they're personal financial things I don't have controlled. I'm trying to delegate. I realize, well, hold on. I can finish this job in I know, what's his name? There's a productivity expert who says if you can do it in 2 minutes, just do it. Don't even bother delegating it because it's faster to get done. And I'm saying maybe it's a 5-minute job and I'm spending 30 minutes trying to delegate. I might as well just finish it in 5 minutes. It's a one-time.
Well, yeah, and I agree with that. But here's where I would say you can change that up and turn it into a process or system. I work with virtual assistants, and I will tell you, my virtual assistant that helps me with my podcast, she can do all of that stuff way faster than me. So there are different levels of virtual assistant. She is what I would call a higher level virtual assistant. I pay her very well for what she does, but I just go, like you said, Bill, I just go, here, Carol, here it is. Now I have some lower level of virtual assistants. And so that I wouldn't have to do that, what you just said, train them each time, I create a training packet for them. I tell them what the overview of the job is. Like one of the first things I outsourced back when we used to do this was Craigslist ads. So I first had to tell them what was Craigslist. So here's the URL, and it's Craigslist Louisville. So I gave them the overview of the job, and then I broke it down and I said, these are the steps. And then I made a video. Always make a video, screenshot everything you're doing. Now, when they forget, they're not going to call me. They're going to go back and look at the training materials. If this VA leaves tomorrow or next week or next year, guess what? I just refer them to the training materials.
Nice. Nice.
So you sidestep that.
Nice. So I know you are an entrepreneur and you've done several different businesses, and you move that into kind of a higher level real estate investing, and it's probateinvestingsimplified.com. Tell us a little bit about the coaching program. Again, it's not for brand new investors, I think, the way we described it. Tell me a little bit about your program and who might be an appropriate candidate to work with you as a mentor or as a student.
Well, as I said before, and this is just a fact of life, that people pass away every month. So your goal with probates is to build a big list and help these people as they go through the process. So the course is designed, it's a self-study course where we do calls along the way. And it's very, by design, it's laid out so that you get one module a week. I don't want you to rush through it. I want people to learn the process, to learn a little bit of the terminology, because my goal and my promise is that if you do this and you go through the course, you follow along, takes maybe an hour or so a week, maybe a little bit longer on some weeks, you will be a probate investing expert at the end of 6 weeks. Now, it doesn't matter if you're an agent or an investor, because I include the marketing materials in there, the mail merge ready templated letters, so that you would get your list where you get your list in California. You know all about that. And then you simply do have someone, you don't do it, you have one of the mail houses do the mail merge for the letters. There's a little bit different message for agents, of course, because they want to list the house and investors looking to buy the house. But the basic letters are the same. But in the course, I point out you need things like how to market to these people. We talk about their mindset, your mindset as an investor that might hold you back. And I believe very firmly that people say, well, you don't need to know any of the terminology or anything. I disagree, because if you're going to show up as the expert and they ask you what exactly is this, you need to be able to tell them an answer. And if you don't know the answer, and I've never really had that happen, because the sellers only have a limited amount of knowledge to begin with. But if you don't know the answer, just like any other time, you just say, I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you. So if they learn the process, they learn how to get the leads in their area, they learn a little bit of the terminology, how to work with probate attorneys, then the marketing process. And part of it is, again, getting out of your own way, getting over the fact that you think it's creepy, because understand that this is a legal process. It's something that is required by law for them to do if this house is in probate. And you are helping them take this enormous job off their plate so that they can move on with their life. And that really is the truth. They are so happy that you're there to help them. You just need to know the right way to go about it.
Almost anytime I do a full length interview on probate and people ask questions, I get asked about, is it creepy, or do people yell at you? And the answer is, I've never really had that happen.
Mm-mm.
Now, I think that I listen carefully, and if I hear some hesitation, I'll move on. I don't push myself on them. I'm available for them. But I've never had anybody say to me, oh my gosh, you're trolling me. My father died. Why are you invading my privacy? I've never had that happen before, because they filed a probate. They filled out legal papers and put it with the court and paid some money, and it ran an ad to go along with it. They're raising their hands saying they're in a process to sell a house, and my job is to help them sell the house. I'll try to get them top dollar. And they may not choose me, but I think most people appreciate it. From an investor point of view, you're getting the leads as well when they're filing probate. Do you find that to be an issue, that people complain about your ambulance chasing or corner van chasing? Or
I can tell you that in I guess it's 11 years now. So more than a decade, I've had 2 complaints, and I was where they said, where did you get my information and why are you contacting me? And I explained it just the way you said it. It's public record. Our intent is not to upset you, but rather to be a resource for you. And let me tell you how how many people, we've helped a lot of people that inherit a house that they don't want. Maybe it needs a ton of work and they can't afford to do it.
Right.
Maybe they can't afford the utilities on two houses or whatever it is. But those two people out of all those hundreds and hundreds of people, once you tell them why you're doing what you do, they were perfectly fine with it. And so I know people think it's going to be a huge problem, but it's really not. People are much more educated, much more savvy today, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's where you, like you said, is where you come from. I'm not ambulance chasing. If they don't need my help, I'll move on. There are
Right.
plenty of people who do.
Right.
But I think that if you're chasing people without the intention of helping, but your intention is to steal their property and take advantage of them in a moment of grief, yeah, some people are going to push back on you. You have to check your own motivations and check your purposes.
Well, and you can have both. You can make, as I said, probates, and I know investors all over the country that don't even specialize in probates, but they'll tell you that hands down for an investor, probates are their most profitable deals, because often the big things have been done in the house: the roof, the windows, the furnace, AC unit. That stuff will be done. It's just really outdated. So the house needs cosmetically everything. But I don't know. From my perspective, I've always come from a place of service. How can I be of service to you? And I honestly don't get any pushback on it. They're, like I said, they're very happy. And I can truthfully say I've gotten more hugs at probate closings than any other type of closing.
I would agree.
Yep.
Okay, so we have an interesting question here from Peter Mark on our YouTube live. And if you're watching this live stream on YouTube or Facebook, you put your questions up and we can ask them as well as show them. So Peter asks us, he says, I picked up a listing last week where at the end of the consult, I was asked, does a double murder and suicide make a difference? Welcome to probate, Peter.
Well,
if that's new for you.
I think in my area and probably yours, I think it's a disclosure issue on the agent's part. But listen, there is a buyer out there for every deal.
Yeah, no question. I had a listing last year that was fire damaged. It was a really hot area.
Mm-hmm.
View Park, up on the hill, view to the South Bay, to fantastic property, except for it was halfway burned. Unfortunately, the family, 3 family members died in the fire. I think the wife and 2 kids, if I remember right. It was in the newspaper. So if you Googled the property, unfortunately, it came up. And, obviously, it's very sad, very grisly. There are people who will not buy the property because of that. I can appreciate that. But there are people who do. And there's an investor who bought it, actually. And by the time he finishes fixing it up, he's outside of the statutory requirement of 3 years to disclose. He feels like he doesn't want to have to disclose it, which that's his prerogative. I'm not here to tell him what to do. He bought the property from my client, so he can do what he wants with it. But I will say that in probate, you get some wild stuff, right? You get cases, and it makes it interesting. I've been in business for quite a while, and it keeps it interesting, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think people get hung up on having the conversations. I think they're thinking, I'm going to have to go in the house and talk about death. Yeah. Well, that's not it. It is never mentioned except in the reference of, I'd like to talk about conversation starters, where you would go in the house and maybe if their dad passed away, you would say, oh, and there's golf clubs. You would say, oh, was your dad the golfer? And then they'll start talking about, yeah, my dad did this, or was your mom the cook? You see cookbooks. So you use a conversation starter. You listen to them tell their story. They've always got a story they're anxious to tell you about the person, but the actual death and the manner of death, unless it's something tragic, it's never discussed. Once you get past that, then you just instinctively know when the time comes and you say, how about, would you like to show me around the house? Then it just moves on, just like any other deal, whether it's a listing or whether it's a real estate investing deal. You just have to change your mindset around the situation and understand where they're coming from. And that is really the truth of the matter.
I also found a convenient way to ask the question is to get a copy of the death certificate because we'll have the cause of death on the form, where they passed and how they passed.
Mhm.
And sometimes you can even avoid asking the question and you can use that for your disclosure as well. So if you're uncomfortable discussing it, that's a little trick I learned along the way. But you're right. It's where you come from is how you
Mhm.
treat people. And I look at this as a chance for me to be of service to people even more so.
Mhm.
Peter mentions, he says that the state, it depends on the state as far as disclosure. He's in Colorado, so he doesn't have to disclose.
Mhm.
It's considered stigmatized property. Okay, every state's a little different. In California, we'd have to disclose a death in the property within 3 years. And there are people they're investors who buy property where people die and or are murdered specifically within 3 years that are disclosed so they can bring it back to market without having to disclose it. And they find that they can
Mhm.
make some money as a result of that differential. So there's different businesses here. Um, okay, so we talked about your coaching program a little bit. Hey, for those of you on the call today, if you're on live on the Zoom, you're going to unmute and ask a question, feel free. Or you want to throw in the chat box. If you're watching on the live stream, either YouTube or Facebook, if you put a question there or comment there, we'll show the live as well as ask. But here's a chance to ask not just an expert investor, not just a coach in the probate space, but really an entrepreneur who's taught a lot of people how to build businesses. And I think at the end of the day, I don't want to look at I don't want another job as a real estate agent where I get a commission. I built a business. And that's some of the things in talking to Sharon and looking at her material has helped me refocus my goal here. So if you have a question, jump in. I see a hand raised. Who is that real quick? I'll scroll up.
Hello.
Hi, how you
Hello.
doing? Hey,
Hi.
Angelica, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Great. You got a question for Sharon?
Yes. So thank you for your insight as well. When it comes to selling the home, I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams in New York City. So I am starting to specialize in probate deals. Is there a likelihood where the executors or family members may want to back out even though they were moving ahead with selling? Is there a likelihood of that?
No, because in the probate process, and Bill knows this, so someone passes away, the estate is open, and then the assets can be sold.
Okay.
So they have to be sold. If the house is in probate and the house has either been is being inherited, like Bill's wife is inheriting the house if he passed away, or I would say, if you have a survivorship deed or something like that, or it's in a trust, if it's in probate, they're going to have to sell the assets to pay the creditors to, for the heirs to get what they want. So this is not a matter of if they're going to sell it. It's when they're going to move forward with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I would say typically people go through the trouble of probate because they want to do something with the property. 80% of the time, there's just one asset, it's the house, and they're only probating it because they want to sell it. They don't want to sell it, even though they should probate it. Oftentimes they just sit on it for 10 years and then decide they want to sell it. They have to open a probate and go through it. So generally, they're motivated enough to spend some money, hire an attorney, fill out forms, things like that.
Yeah, they want the money, Angelica. If you look at the heirs, let's just be real here. You're way up here where they open the estate, someone passes away, they open the estate, and then they can sell the assets, then they pay the creditors, and that's everybody that money is owed to, even personal bills, funeral expenses, nursing home bills, whatever is there. And way down here at the bottom are those heirs that just want the dang money out of the house. They just want to get it done. So, and I mean, that's just the truth of it. They don't want the house in most cases. They want the money. So they're very motivated to sell. Now, occasionally you'll get Bill knows this, I'm sure. You'll have to do a little counseling at the kitchen table with the heirs, because one is like being unrealistic and one is, wants to sell at any cost. And that's where I would say 1 out of every 50, 75 deals, I'm going to have what I call a kitchen table talk, where you're going to sit down and figure out where their differences are. And this might sound weird to you, but really it's not. It's just a conversation. Find out where everybody is and how you can meet in the middle, because at the end of the day, you just want to get the listing or the deal. So you're very motivated to help them figure it out. But usually they're all in agreement, at least in my world. They've already decided. And then it's just whether they're going to list it and or whether it's an investor deal. And Bill and I talked about this previously. You can list almost anything on the MLS right now. Let's just face it.
I'm Jewish. We call that a come to Jesus meeting, by the way.
Come to Jesus. Well, I call them that too. Come to Jesus meeting. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And where you have a problem, Angelica, where you have the problem is you have the one heir who doesn't want to, who's living in the house. What commonly happens is mom and dad pass, 3 kids living there, 2 go on and get a good job and go on with their lives. And one just doesn't do anything, lives in the house for free. He's on welfare. Who knows what other business he's running. And when the other heirs want to sell the property, he's there and doesn't want to inspect, doesn't want to show the property, doesn't want to sell the property. He's living for free, or she. And that's where you have a little bit of a problem, and you need to get involved with an attorney or an eviction service or different things. But generally, somebody cared enough to file a probate, pay for the probate fees, hire an attorney. They generally are motivated. Hey, Angelica, what part of New York are you in?
I'm in New York City.
What part?
In Brooklyn.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Daughter went to school in New York in FIT down in I guess Soho
nice.
area. Yeah.
Okay.
There's something I know about New York, Angelica, in almost every state in the country. There will be a notice to creditors filed. That's how the creditors learn that someone has passed away. And in my area, it's printed in the newspaper. In Illinois, there's a process for printing it in the newspaper, and the creditors have so long to come forward. But I have a student that's in New York, and I learned from this student that in New York, there is no notice to creditors. So if the creditors aren't somehow, I guess, monitoring the obituaries, they don't know they're about to lose whatever they've loaned. It's a very interesting situation in New York.
I've noticed that, well, what I've been seeing in New York is that they have 7 months to make that claim. And if they don't, so,
It's
so that makes
universal. Most states have some sort of time limit that creditors have.
Yeah, it seems to be about 6 months nationally. And that's an average. It might be a little bit more, a little bit less, but it seems to be about 6 months, come forward or forever, it's gone. You're going to lose your money.
Thank you,
Okay,
Sharon.
good.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, stories you want to tell about a property, more harrowing?
One thing I would mention about the course is we have a private Facebook group. So what I see with courses is that people buy courses and then I like to say they get dropped like a hot potato. So we'll resume having some calls about the probate course after the first of the year. That's not something you'll find with me. I don't do that. And what I work on too is helping you build a real business. Tell you where you can get a done for you website, all the tools that you need, like direct mail, CRMs, things like that. If you need those things, some people don't.
Very good. Okay, other questions, comments in the chat box? Here we got one from Isabel. What field of not probate would you recommend for someone just starting real estate? What are the qualities or red flags to look for when finding a real estate agent? So let me take a shot at this one, Sharon, then I'll ask you for your input. So she's asking, I'm starting real estate and probate may not be the right fit. And I tell agents, unless you have some special in, if you're a paralegal or your brother's an attorney at a big firm or your parents or something, if you don't have a special in, probate probably is more complicated place to start. And you either have to do one of two things. You have to either generate leads or be given leads. Usually given leads means you're on a team where they take a high percentage of your commission and they feed you leads. Or you have to generate your own leads by some sort of a business, marketing and a business plan and being professional about it. And it's challenging as a new agent, I think, to justify the investment of money when you don't know how to convert a lead into a contract. And so generally I recommend, unless you have some other business that you can convert from. I had a client who had a tax preparation business with 2,000 clients. Well, obviously, if you have 2,000 clients and you're doing their taxes, some of them are buying and selling houses. That's an easy way to convert those buyers into another business. Or if you're a nail person or a hair person, and you have a book of clients, well, you can reach out to them and try to find who's looking to buy houses or sell houses. But in general, I would say that your best bet is to find a methodology where you either convert what you have or you find a team that's going to give you leads. And Nan, I'd be glad to take this offline if you want to, or Isabel, and we could talk about training programs for real estate agents and things like that. Sharon, what's your take? New agents looking to get started.
Yeah, well, I'm not an agent, but I would say for a new investor looking to get started, I completely agree with what you said. I always tell them, don't quit your day job. Keep your day job and do investing part-time until you get to where you have replaced your salary or have equaled your salary. It is such a tremendous stress. And I'm sure it's the same thing for an agent to go into spending money on systems and leads and all of those things when you haven't generated any money. So I'm a big proponent of either having enough money to tide you over for 6 months, 9 months, or however long, or doing whatever you're doing, having some kind of a side gig to pay the basic bills. We'll just say that. You don't have to stay in your corporate job, but it is just so much pressure to quit your job and suddenly think you're going to be an agent or a successful investor, because like you said, Bill, you need that. You need a base, or a referral base of some kind.
I started in mortgages, and in mortgages, you have to do about 3 or 4 times the transactions to make the same money. And working for a mortgage company, you often can get some incoming leads. And when it was time to move over to real estate, I had done thousands of loans, and I converted a percentage of those into buyers and sellers to get started. So I do think it's best if you have another system to get contacts. I know Nan asked for the contact info. I put it in the chat box, but SharonVornholt.com is her website for entrepreneurship and blog and podcast. And then ProbateInvestingSimplified.com, ProbateInvestingSimplified.com is her website. There's her coaching website for probate investors, and we'll put those in the show notes as well.
If they have a question, Bill, they can email me too at Sharon@SharonVornholt.com. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Nice. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other questions, comments, horror stories you want to share with the group in probate? It's funny in regular real estate agents, when they get together, they talk about the problems in their files. When probate real estate agents, investors get together, we brag about our problems. So,
I know. We're kind of weird like that, right?
I know. I'm so proud of it. I think I told you the story, Sharon, on the other call we did. I had an attorney one time, and I asked him, why is it that the property wasn't listed for sale? Certain types of properties have to be listed or advertised to get court approval. And he said the property was in such bad condition that the MLS wouldn't accept it. I started laughing and I said, I bet I have 2 worse than that right now. Like you don't even know what bad looks like. This attorney, his office is in Santa Monica. He's like in his nice little office with his, in stylish clothes and all that. You don't even know what bad houses look like until you get into probate.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you get houses with a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. They may not technically be hoarders. They may be keepers. They're going to keep all the butter tubs because you never know when you might need a dish to put something in or similar things. But people are often embarrassed about the condition of the property. And I always just say, look, this is really nothing. Don't worry about it. We've all had aging parents, and it's just the way it is. I mean, they came from a different time. They kept things. They came from a place of lack.
Right. Well, number one, they came from a place of lack and depression and things like that. I think too, as you get older, it's harder to keep up with maintenance, taking out the trash and sorting through. And there's just amount of brain power it takes to make those decisions to get rid of things. And I know personally, it gets harder to put things away. My daughter, we had our first grandchild. So in preparation, my daughter wanted us to upgrade her house since we remodeled, but she insisted on helping us clean out, a lot of stuff. She said, look, Dad, I don't want to have to deal with this down the road. Let's just clean everything else now. We'll repaint and make it look pretty. So we did that. But it's a lot of work. I think as you get older, physically carrying things to the trash can and making those decisions can be difficult.
Yeah, I would agree. That's the biggest gift you can give your children, is to not leave that job to them, because it's a massive job. And I will say this, it's the stuff in the house is the number one reason that keeps people from moving forward with the sale of the property. If you can offer to help them with that, that is a huge bonus for them. because they're just overwhelmed by the amount of stuff.
Well, especially on COVID, you can't, it's
Mhm.
harder to donate things. I have vendors who'll trash out and donate 1-800 Got Junk. They'll donate as much as they can in the city of LA, they're required to. But people are embarrassed by how much gets thrown out. And I tell them that's just life today. It's just the
Yeah,
world we're in.
it is.
Jesus's iPad has a hand up. You got a question, Jesus?
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Hey, Sharon, thank you so much for all the information.
You're welcome.
I've got a kind of question and more like maybe advice from someone who's been in the business and doing this full time. So I do real estate full time. I've been licensed and been doing real estate full time for just about 6-7 years.
Mhm.
I want to transition more towards investing, wholesaling type of deal. I do have a couple of investment properties. Myself, I haven't done my own kind of like wholesale or my own flip project,
Mhm.
but I want to transition more towards that. I would say that would be my focus 2022. So just kind of see what advice you had for me, what are some of the things that I should do and focus on.
Well, keep your day job. That's number one. Keep your day job. And then
Mhm.
you've got to, so you can certainly source properties off of the MLS, but your biggest source of properties as an investor will be off market deals.
Mm-hmm.
They are the ones that, Bill talked about all the agents that all the eyes that are on every deal in the MLS. You don't have that with off market deals. Yes, there are other people competing with you, but now don't get me wrong. I love agents. I've always worked with agents for the last 30 years. Exactly. It's 1991 to 2021. But I like getting in front of the seller and dealing with that person like an agent would if they were
Mhm.
going to list a property. See, my best case scenario is to not have an agent in the middle
Mhm.
because that's where my strength is. And I think for any agent who's used to listing properties, they've already got that skill.
Mhm.
So you should certainly take advantage of your of the MLS, but go over to off-market properties. There are absentee owners, out-of-state absentee owners,
Mhm.
probates, pre-foreclosures. There's getting ready to be a huge amount of REOs. I know in Chicago, I was just up there and did at a 3-day conference where I spoke about probates.
Mhm.
They're going to have 1,200 REOs in Chicago next month, December.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's a lot of opportunity in my area.
Mhm.
Code violations. You're not going to get rich off of code violations, but these people, you'll find some crossover with probates and other motivated sellers. They've got this property and they've
Mhm.
got code violations, but there are a ton of different ways that you can find off market deals. I just happen to love probates. You do have to market. You have to have a list for those, and you
Mhm.
do have to do marketing. But here's the secret is, and Bill knows this, most people simply won't do it. 90% of your competition will quit after the first or second mailing.
Mhm.
So yes, you'll have a competition for that first group of letters, and then you'll have very little competition.
Mhm.
The-
Gotcha.
the-
Gotcha.
You want to be the
So-
last man standing.
So as far as like letters, the information for who you're mailing it to, is that something that you purchase or is that something that how would you get that type of information for you to reach out to some of these probate sellers?
Where are you located? I will
I'm-
say that. Go ahead.
Orange County, California.
Oh, okay. Well, I think Bill can tell you how you get those leads in California.
Mhm.
I think there are online sources. If you're in
Mhm.
Louisville, Kentucky, your source is going to be the newspaper. So
Gotcha.
wherever you are, Google the word probate, the plus
Mm-hmm.
sign in your county. Google probate, the plus sign in your city, and see what pops up. I had a student in Harris County, Texas. So we just Googled Harris County plus probate, and guess what? They were all online. In many
Really?
areas, Fort Lauderdale, you're going to have to go to the courthouse. But I think in your area, it's my understanding there are sources for online, getting the leads online, but Bill is the person who could advise you on that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're in a very competitive probate market for
Mhm.
data. So whereas some counties have zero, sources or maybe one, you have probably about 10 to choose from. Go to my website, the LAProbateExpert.com. On the far right, I have probate resources, and I actually have a link to all the data services I'm aware of, and a couple of videos. I interviewed some of them on prior episodes. I would say that the range would be the cheapest might be Foreclosures Daily. It does probate data. And the most expensive and highest quality would be alltheleads.com. And they do a very detailed training, coaching.
Here's the thing, depending on where you are, if I'm in a city where they don't have those open APIs, so that the information literally can't be pulled, like a company like All the Leads can't, they don't have the physical ability to pull the leads. So if you've got that ability, yes, you've got more competition because it's easier. But the money is in the follow-up. The money is always in the follow-up. So as you know, this 80% of your deals as an investor will come from follow-up. And some of those will be after the person has told you no. You just got to keep following up. So once you understand how this works, you see the big landscape of things. As far as getting the data, let me go back to that. There are over 3,300 counties in the US, and each one of them has a different system. So that's why I wish I could say there's this one clearinghouse. It's like the MLS. The MLS is the MLS. We don't have that for probates. But if you have to do a little digging to find out where to get the leads, guess what? Most people aren't going to do it. Most people, you have a lot of competition. Bill obviously has a system down for marketing, so he's successful. Most people are going to send out a letter or two or three, and they're just going to say, forget it. I'm not going to do this anymore. So with the way I approached investing was I was always looking forward with my plan. And see, I'm a minority. There were very, very few women in real estate in 1998. I mean, today there's still shockingly less women than men, but I couldn't focus on that. I just had my path laid out in front of me, my plan, Bill talked about his 5-year plan. Be aware of your competition over here, but focus on being the best. Focus on being the expert and on your brand. Focus on your brand, make the videos, get out of your comfort zone, because you simply can't be the best kept secret in town and build a business. You can't. You've got to figure out how you're going to show up. And there are many ways. I know someone that built a very good brand totally on Facebook with still pictures of ugly houses. I mean, but he became known as one of the ugly house guys. But they knew he was a bona fide investor because he was always out there finding the deals. But there are, I have agents that have taken my course. Some of them have gone over to the investor side. Some of them never intended to be an investor. They simply used it to niche down their brand as far as an agent goes. I'm an agent in a sea of a million agents, but I focus, my expertise is in probates and this and this. So that's would be my advice to everybody on here. You're unique in some way, and just own your weirdness. I mean, own it, and really not bad weird, but just be yourself. Be yourself, and you will attract the people that are meant to work with you. And those that are not, or somehow turned off by you, just God bless them, and they're meant for someone else. And really, that's the way it works.
I couldn't agree more. Be authentically you. People who want to work with you will work with you, and people who don't won't. And as long as they get sorted out that way, you'll be in good shape.
Thank you.
We have a couple other questions we're not going to get to today because we're really up at the end of our time. And I really appreciate Sharon. You really unlocked a lot of questions. Those of you who have questions, we'll deal with some of them in the chat box or in the comment section as well. Or feel free, if you want to see the episode, put your questions there and I'll copy the answers that I have or ask Sharon for an answer in some of the cases. I just want to, again, first off, point out, if you want to get a hold of her, Sharon at SharonVornholt.com, SharonVornholt.com. And then she has her website, SharonVornholt.com, as well as her ProbateInvestingSimplified.com, which is a probate-focused coaching program for investors, people who are serious, people who are involved in it, not brand new, but looking to build their business and to move to another level. So Sharon, again, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure, as always, speaking with you and learning from you and sharing with you what goes on in investing in probate and real estate. Thank you so much for being on the call with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. And thanks to everyone that came out tonight. Well, for me, it's tonight. It's 8:00.
Well, it's 5:00 here, so we're getting close to tonight. Hey, one last thing real quick. I just want to share with you guys, if you're here in LA, we do have going on in about an hour, the LA Real Estate Investors Club. It's at the at UCLA at Ackerman Hall. It's free. There'll be about 250 attendees and about 70 vendors. You can meet people with data and have different services. That's Lloyd Siegel organizes the LA Real Estate Investors Club. Sharon mentioned in the beginning how she started her journey through AREA, Real Estate Investors Association. This is kind of a variation on that same concept. Great place for new people to meet coaches, services, systems, mentors, people who can help you get on your career. So again, thank you so much, Bill Gross. This is probateweekly.com. It'll be Thursday, 4 p.m.
Bill,
Pacific,
can you
7 p.m.
say
Eastern.
one more time the information on that event coming up with the real estate investors, not the RIA, but the first one, with all the vendors?
LAREIC.com, LA Real Estate Investors Club.com, LAREIC, LAREIC.com.
And
Go
that's,
there.
they've got
Tonight at 6:30, an hour and a half
Perfect.
here in LA at UCLA. So again, thank you so
Perfect.
much.
Thank you.
Thursdays, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we're also at probateweekly.com. You can see the past episodes at probateweeklyepisodes.com. I'm Bill Gross, Bill Gross EXP. Thank you so much. Have a great week, everybody. Really appreciate it.